Hello everyone, welcome to the Fisher Group Real Estate channel. Today we're so excited to invite Miguel come to our channel talking about building your custom home. Welcome Miguel.
Thank you, Fisher. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Miguel is a well-known and have good reputation custom building builder. So in Oakville, so it's like we're super happy to have you come here to share your insights.
That's great. It's great to be here. As Fisher said, I'm a custom home builder. I've been building for over 12 years in Oakville, and it's something I'm absolutely passionate about, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, sounds great. Let's get started. What type of building models do you usually offer to your clients?
Well, there are three main building models out there. So the first one is turnkey.
Okay, turnkey. Yeah.
Turnkey, yes. So turnkey is essentially the more traditional building model where a client and a builder work together. They decide on the scope of work. They agree on a fixed cost, the level of detail, the finishes, etc. And then the builder will manage all aspects of the build.
Okay.
The second one is what we call a cost plus model. And in
Cost plus.
Cost plus, yes.
Okay, yeah.
So in a cost plus model, the homeowner is much more involved. They're paying for building materials and labor.
Yeah.
And then the builder is effectively managing the build, and the homeowner is paying the builder a percentage of the building costs.
Okay.
Okay. The third one is project management.
Project management.
Yes, so project management, very similar to cost plus, where the homeowner is paying for the building materials and labor, and paying the builder to manage the project. The biggest difference is that it's a fixed flat fee for project management. So unlike the cost plus model, where if costs go up or down, the builder's fee will change.
Yeah.
In a project management model, the building cost for the builder is fixed. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so can you explain the difference between the three models?
Yeah, so obviously there's some advantages and disadvantages of each model. In the turnkey approach, the benefit is that there's little involvement from the homeowner, other than picking some materials, selecting some choices. There's little involvement in that regard. There's cost certainty, so it's a fixed price for the build. So the homeowner knows exactly what they're going to be paying for their house. And the drawbacks are that, or the disadvantages are that there's a little flexibility. Whereas, if you want to make some changes, generally the builder may not let you make design changes. If you want to change your mind on certain selections, they may charge you a lot of money to make those changes.
Okay.
So there's little flexibility on it.
Yeah.
And also it tends to be the most expensive building model.
Okay, and mostly rely on the builder.
Correct. All the responsibility and all the risk also relies on the builder, which again, that's an advantage, one of the benefits from a homeowner perspective.
Yeah.
In the cost plus and the project management building models, the homeowner is a lot more involved. So that's sort of the drawback. They have to participate a lot more in terms of selecting materials, but at the same time they have full control. Okay. So they can decide on, if they can switch out materials, they can play around with the layout. They're essentially in the driver's seat. So that's one of the huge advantages. The disadvantage is, one of the disadvantages, that there's some cost uncertainty. So if building material costs go up, well, then the homeowner needs to absorb that.
Yeah.
But it tends to work well if you have an appetite for some risk.
Yeah.
Right. And you want to be heavily involved in the decision.
The homeowner need to have more time, more energy, more experience, maybe.
Exactly. Or if they just want to learn, I find a lot of clients, they want to be heavily involved because they want to learn. So it's not that they necessarily have experience, but they want to be involved in the process because they want to get educated on it.
Yeah, they want to learn the process.
Exactly.
Okay, so may I ask a question? So in your past experience and past clients, what's the percentage they choose for each model?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say probably the two most popular models is the fixed or the turnkey approach. And then project management.
Okay, these are two most popular.
Two most popular. In terms of percentages, kind of hard to tell, to give you a number, but those are definitely the two most popular. Yeah, and for various reasons, because it's a very different type of consumer
Yeah.
that will go to both, right? Because if you don't have the time, like you said, or the energy,
Yeah.
or the appetite for risk, you're going to lean more towards a turnkey type of model. Versus if you have some time and you want to be involved and you
Yeah.
want to control things, and you want to have full transparency and visibility on pricing, you'll probably lean more towards project management. And truthfully, the project management model tends to be the least expensive model as well,
Yeah.
so that's one of the added benefits of it as well.
Okay, yeah, that's really good sharing. Yeah, what should homeowners keep in mind when they picking a building model?
Well, like I said, it comes down to really two things, right? Is how involved do you want to be?
Okay.
So if you have the time and energy,
Yeah.
definitely the project management model is great from that regard, because you're going to be heavily involved in the decision making, sourcing materials, understanding the benefits of the pros and cons of each material.
Yeah.
If you don't have the time, then definitely the turnkey model is the better approach. And then just your appetite for risk. So if you have a tight budget, you want to go with a turnkey approach, because you know exactly where you're going to spend. Even though you may end up spending a bit more, but there's benefit to that because you don't have to worry about it, right? You can budget accordingly and then get your financing in place and not have to worry about costs going up or down, right? Whereas if you have some risk tolerance and you're comfortable with pricing changing a little bit throughout the process, then the project management model might make more sense for you.
Okay, so each model suitable for each kind of clients.
Exactly, yeah. And in the project management model too, it's you have the ability to sometimes make changes, like even drive costs down, because you might say, I don't need 4 fireplaces in the house, I'll go with 2, and you can select sort of lower cost alternatives versus because you assess what's valuable to you, right?
And the 3 models, the fee is same or different for the builder?
Well, I would say in the turnkey, that's where the builder's assuming all the risk there, so they are definitely making more money in that regard, I would think. That's why it tends to be more costly for the homeowner.
Yeah.
In the cost plus model, it's a variable cost, right? So, in one regard, the higher the cost generally means the more involved the builder's going to be in the project, right? But the reality is, if you spend $40,000 on a kitchen or $100,000 on your kitchen, from a builder perspective, the level of involvement is the same. So they shouldn't really be making more money off you, right?
Okay.
That's why I think in many ways the project management approach is fair, because it's a flat fee. You agree on that ahead of time with your builder.
Yeah.
And regardless of how much you spend, or exactly what you're going to pay your builder.
Okay. So let's say if I have a client right now, he's building a home, and he want bring some material from overseas by his own, it is allowed by the builder or not?
Generally, it depends. I would say generally no, because it's a big risk, and it could result in a lot of headaches down the road.
Right.
If the builder isn't comfortable with the building material that you're bringing over, or doesn't have experience, I would caution you not to do it.
Yeah.
But if the builder has some experience with it, for sure. If it makes sense,
Yeah. Can save some money.
It can save some money, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sounds great. So right now we can see several different type of home, like modern, traditional, and it's like all in Oakville, right? So how do lifestyle needs and future goals influence home design choices?
Yes, you're right. There's a few different styles out there, and really it comes down to matter of preference, right? Ultimately, the modern is a very specific segment. Traditional is a very specific segment. I would say most people kind of are somewhere in between in terms of the transitional phase.
Okay.
Transitional home really kind of lends itself, there's a lot more flexibility in it. But ultimately, from a lifestyle perspective, really it's more in terms of the layout and design, interior design of the house, right? Like if you have a big family, you might want a bigger kitchen, you might want to forgo a living room. If you have a smaller family and you entertain a lot, you might want a dining room and a living room. So in terms of how your lifestyle and your family scenario is, that really dictates the design, the interior design of the house. But from an exterior standpoint, we find that in general, most people lean towards transitional type of home, because it's sort of a safe bet, and a lot easier for resale, I find, and just more appeals to wider group.
Yeah. So don't put your too much personal style inside the house.
That's right. Yeah, and that's always some advice I always give to my clients. Don't over customize. Think of it from a resale perspective as well. Every decision you make. And now, if you're going to be there 10, 15 years, then by all means, get as much enjoyment from it as you need, and customize it as much as you want. But most clients look at it from a 5-year window, 5 to 10-year window, and you want to make sure you don't over customize.
Yeah, don't be over customized.
Yeah, right.
After the design, so it's kind of like many clients ask me the question. So Fisher, how long start and to finish? How long should it take? After I purchase the land, start to build, and how soon I can move in the house? Usually, how long?
Yes, that is a good question. I get that question all the time too.
Yeah.
So, and there's obviously a few different factors, but it generally takes almost 2 years.
2 years.
2 years, yeah. So the design stage takes about 6 months.
Okay.
Now, if you know exactly what you want and you're working with an architect that isn't very busy, you can do that design in 2 to 3 months. But that's definitely a stage where you don't want to rush.
Yeah.
You want to give yourself enough time to review, get feedback from your realtor, from your friends, and just make modifications. And generally, there's a lot of back and forth. So that process takes about 6 months.
Okay, 6 months for design.
Design, yeah. Second stage is permits. So that's when you apply for permits. So generally, that takes about 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months for design.
For the permits.
Permits, for the permits. Sorry.
Yeah. So once the design is complete, you apply for permits. And in this stage, you're doing two things. You're applying for permits, and then you're also planning now the construction phase, right? So you're doing a lot of pre-work on the construction side. So just as a client, you're probably starting to look at appliances and fixtures and start material selection. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
And then obviously the next stage is construction.
Construction.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's generally 12 months, and it really depends on the size of the home. But as a rule of thumb, 10 to 12 months.
10 to 12 months. Yeah. Okay. Some clients ask me question, Fisher, when is the best time to start to construction?
And there's no right and wrong, other than I would certainly say don't start in the winter.
Don't start in winter.
Yeah. So basically from December to February.
Yeah.
That 3-month period, stay away from it.
Okay. Why?
The weather's really unpredictable. You go from hot, cold, and frost. Melting, frost, and that's a critical stage when you're doing your foundation, right? And foundation is one of those things you can't redo easily, right? So you want to ensure you have good, weather conditions to pour your foundation, so that your foundation is not going to give you problems in the future.
Okay.
Right, and when the weather is unpredictable, not to say that every foundation that goes in, there's going to be problems with it. It's a small percentage.
Yeah.
But you just increase the risk.
Okay. Yeah. So not good for the foundation.
Not good for foundation, or it just opens up the opportunity for some issues down the road. Yeah.
Any suggestion for the best time to start?
Nope. Anytime.
Anytime.
Spring all the way through fall is a good time.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah. And we're talking about design period, permit period, and construction period. Okay. As a builder, so when the builder should involve in the stage.
So
do you have any recommendation?
I think they should be involved even before the design stage. So
before the design.
Yeah. So it's a good idea to once you're ready to build, or you're thinking about building, it's a good opportunity to start engaging builders, start talking to builders. And when you're doing the site evaluation, right? When you're going out there looking for properties, it's good to have a builder have a second look and provide input on your building lot, because they'll be able to they'll give you a sense of what kind of home you can build, how big. They'll be able to highlight any potential issues with grading or trees that may negatively impact what you're trying to accomplish, or drive up cost, right? So they'll be able to highlight some of these things ahead of time, so that you're informed when you purchase the property. You have all the information, right?
Okay, so the builder should be involved in as early as they can.
Yeah, as early as they can. It's always a good idea. I find that it's kind of interesting, because I find half the clients involve builders right when they're done the design stage, and I think that's way too late because
way too late after design.
Yeah, because you wanna get a builder's perspective on the design as well. So when you're going through the design stage, you want somebody who understands spacing. Not that architects don't, but you want another set of eyes providing you insight on things like, hey, this feature adds cost. If you make this small modification, you can reduce cost by this much. So a builder's always looking at it from that perspective, whereas most architects are looking at it from an aesthetic perspective, and they're not necessarily taking all costs into consideration. So it's good to have a builder definitely review your design as you're going through the design process.
Okay, so maybe the designer looking for how it looks like.
That's right.
And the builder looks like what's the cost?
How to make it
more cost. Yeah. It's like interesting, the different eyes.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
And ultimately, we're trying to accomplish the same thing. We want, we share the same objectives. We want your home to be beautiful.
Yeah.
And we want it to be on time and on budget, right? So when everybody's kind of working together that way, you have more information, you make better decisions.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. So is the builder always can help the clients when they buy in, so put an offer, or before they put an offer for the land?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's good. That sounds good. Yeah. So we already talked about the design, permit, and the construction 3 period, right? What are the common challenges that pop up during the building process, and how can homeowners be ready for that?
I guess the most common challenges are that we've seen over the past couple of years has been around labor and material shortages.
Labor and material shortage.
Yes. So things are getting a lot better. And there's definitely positive signs there, but over the past couple of years, those have been kind of 2 challenges we've had. And then just timely decision making. So clients obviously, especially in the project management and cost plus model, they're making a lot of the decisions, and if they're not making decisions in a timely way, there's a snowball effect, and that creates delays. And so if you're working with a well-organized builder that's holding you accountable and ensuring you're making decisions in a timely way, things will go a lot smoother for sure.
Okay. And regarding the decision, I always heard the husband and wife make the different decisions and they always fight.
That is a very good point. That's a very good point. Sometimes I feel like I'm a marriage counselor. I'm caught in the middle. But and listen, that's part of my job too. Is a good builder will try to save clients from themselves, because a builder does this every day. A good builder will have a good pulse on the market in terms of what's trending, what's not. So a good builder will weigh in and help influence certain decisions, because you don't want a client making a mistake doing investing a lot of money in a kitchen that's outdated now, right? So in that regard, and that's where I sometimes see the conflict between the partners, because they'll have a certain set of ideas, and the other partner might be a more traditional mindset. So it's a lot of times I'm the third vote, right? And then it's also a really good idea to have an interior designer work with you, because they can also weigh in, and they also have a good sense of what the trends are, and they can also act as the mediator and provide a vote and influence decisions. Because ultimately, like I said earlier, we all want the same objective. We want the most beautiful house that comes in on budget, right? So we want to make sure we're making the right decisions, and that when you move in a couple years later, you're not regretting that you went with that, or you chose that, right? So
so it's like, again, maybe don't do over customized.
Again, everybody's got their preferences and tastes, and just don't do something that is very, very unique. That's sort of my recommendation, right? So if you've only seen it once or twice, you may want to stay away from it. But by the same token, if you don't want to go with something that's been used 100 times either, right? So it's that finding that sweet spot in the middle. Something that's kind of unique, that has a bit of unique characteristics to it, but that isn't so out there that it's going to turn a lot of people off.
And you just mentioned the cost. So what are the main factors that affect the overall cost of building custom home?
Well, obviously the size of the home. The size of the home, right? And then just sort of like I won't call them unique features, but there's things like saunas and theater rooms and wine cellars, more specialty kind of features that on its own do drive up cost. There is, most homes now are becoming smart homes.
Yeah.
So the level of automation can vary significantly. So if you want to be able to do everything from your fingertips, that comes with a pretty big price tag versus if you want to do just a handful of things. And then the exterior. Exterior is the biggest cost driver because stone, natural stone, specifically limestone, is extremely expensive. And on the other extreme, stucco is the least expensive. So I find a lot of clients, when they engage me after they've done the design, and a lot of homes are in the design are all stone. And then when you kind of break down the cost, they start going through a really thorough budgeting exercise. They're like, oh my goodness, that's a lot of money.
We should do stucco.
Right? So you start kind of exploring different options, and it's usually a hybrid, right? Because obviously you want the front elevation. You want curb appeal, right?
Sure.
So your front elevation is the most critical. You want that to look great. And again, it doesn't have to all be stone. I mean, there's different combinations of finished materials that will look good. But as you start getting into the sides of the house and to the rear, you can start reducing, going with building materials that are a little more cost effective, because very few people are going to see it, right?
And you mentioned some unique features for home. So in your idea, what kind of features have most cost return? It's like worth to do that.
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, again, they're all sort of equal. I wouldn't say there's one in specific. I think at the end of the day, maximizing your space makes the most sense. Like, you don't want to go to some people really love home theaters. Other people will be like, I'll never use that in my life, right? Or I'll use that once a year. So everyone has a different value system. Does it hurt the resale value of the house? I don't think so. But if you're not using it on a regular basis, then why invest, tens of thousands in a theater, right? Use that money somewhere else. So it really just depends on, again, if they're going to get use out of it, by all means, invest in that area, because somebody else might see the same value down the road. But if you're doing it and you're not going to use it often, then just save those funds and use them somewhere else.
So when we go to a custom built home, we saw some good features. For example, like the rooms under the parking, under the garage, or sunk backyard. You walk up and big sunk area. So it's something that's worth to do that or not?
I would say a walkout basement is probably the best use of funds, because it's when you're in a basement, when you have a walkout, it doesn't feel like you're in a basement.
True.
So you're just adding another floor to your house. You're adding, a couple thousand square feet of living space that people feel comfortable in, regardless of the time of day and time of year. Versus, when you only have small windows in your basement, kind of always feels gloomy, right? So a walkout just really opens it up. So I think, if there's one, I'll call it specialty feature that I would recommend, that'd be the one to invest in.
Okay, So regarding the cost, I think the number one question I always get, Fisher, what do you think? What's the cost per square foot?
Right.
Do you have any idea about it?
Well, that's always a tough one to answer, because there's so many variables, right? So it depends on level of finishes, like some of those specialty rooms we talked about, right? Depends on the neighborhood. Some neighborhoods command higher end finishes, right? So in Southeast Oakville, you might want to go with a lot of limestone on the exterior, because it kind of keeps up with the neighborhood. Whereas in Southwest Oakville, you might go with man-made stone. Right?
Okay.
So, but realistically, nowadays, this is a big range, but it's anywhere between $400 to $500.
Okay, between 400 to 500.
Yeah, and obviously it can go significantly more than 500 depending on luxury features, but that's always a good. 450 is a good number to budget.
Okay.
You can certainly do it less.
Yeah.
I don't think you could do it less than 400. You'd be hard pressed to do that. But yeah, so that's a good range. I always tell people budget 450. But in going through a budgeting exercise, like it's really important as a builder to make sure you have a good sense of expectations from your clients in terms of the level of finishes that they're looking for, because you want to provide a budget that aligns with their expectations, right?
Yes. So you're talking about the cost. Sometimes it maybe depends on the neighborhood. You don't want to spend 600 per square foot in some areas, right?
Right.
And in some high-end area, you don't want to spend like less than 400 per square foot. Right. So how the homeowners set real estate like a budget for their custom home project?
Yeah, well, so to set a realistic budget, the most important thing, there's probably two things, but the most important thing is know more or less what you want to build. The caliber of home.
Can you repeat? No more less.
Know the caliber of home you want to build.
Okay.
Understand, the size.
Yeah.
And the level of finishes you'd like to see in your home, right? And the way to do this is to, go with your realtor, visit a lot of open houses, look at houses that newly built houses that are on the market, because then you're going to get a feel for what you want, what you're comfortable with, what you like.
Yeah.
And then when you communicate that to your builder, they'll be able to provide you with a realistic budget.
Right.
And then always encourage your builder and ask your builder to just walk you through some of their projects that are that they're working on, because then you'll be able to get a sense of what those finishes are.
Right.
And your builder will know what those costs are. So when they're pulling together the budget for you, you'll be able to have a real good, accurate view of it.
Sometimes, like, I have some buyers asking me the question, hey Fisher, so same street, both are custom built home. Why this one only 3 million, another one asking 3.6 million? It's like, sometimes it's really hard to explain.
Sure, it is, but if you've walked through both, usually you can see why there's a big difference, right? Again, a lot of clients invest in the quality finishes, and not everybody necessarily appreciates it. Like, for example, one of the features that is very common is heated flooring throughout the house, or at least in the basement, right? So that's a feature, that comes with a price tag. It's in the tens of thousands of dollars. It adds to the comfort of the house, but you don't necessarily see it, doesn't, right? But when you live in it, you appreciate it, right? So, understanding, and then smart home automation is another good example, right? Because those are all things behind the scenes that you can't necessarily feel and observe in the moment, but when you're living there and you're experiencing it, you see the value of it, right?
True.
So it's not like a kitchen. A kitchen,
everything
certain
you use
size,
it,
you're going to use it. You can compare this kitchen to that kitchen, and easily, right? But there's other features that are, valuable that you might not necessarily appreciate right off the bat.
Like heated driveway.
Heated driveway, exactly. Things like that. So, but when you live there, you'll appreciate it, right?
True. Yeah.
So, there's a series of factors, and then even just on the quality of the workmanship. Generally, you can. If a house is priced cheaper, there's usually a reason why.
Okay, I have like clients when they build a home, so the budget maybe, let's say 3,000 square foot house, budget maybe 1.2 million. But after finish, he did a calculation, hey Fisher, spend 1.4 million.
Right.
So do you have any tips for the clients how to control the cost?
I see that happen all the time.
All the time,
And there's a couple of reasons why it happens. One of it is just clients they don't want to compromise as much. They're building a custom home. They say, you know what, if I spend $5,000 more on this feature, it's going to look way nicer. They're willing to spend a little bit more and compromise a little less, because they're like, what's an extra $2,000 for this? And then what's an extra $5,000 for that? But then it all adds up, right? When you're making decisions in isolation, a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there, it starts adding up at the end of it.
True.
The other factor, and this is really important, I think I touched on this earlier, is just timely decisions. If you make your decisions well ahead of time, then you have the ability to go out, shop around, find the best deals, especially for building materials, and even for trades. If you start, you pick a trade, pick a framer, I want to work with this guy, you schedule them in, make that decision early on, then you're good. Whereas if you start making decisions late, then you're sort of at the mercy of what's available when you need it, right? So sometimes you pay more.
No available,
not available, right? So if you make decisions early on, then it just gives you a lot more flexibility. And if you change your mind, you're not paying for it. You still have time to change your mind. Whereas sometimes we're already in the middle of a process, and you know, the client will say, no, I don't want that hardwood floor anymore. I want this, and now we find out it's not available. And it's going to cost a lot more, so that's going to delay us. So if you make decisions early on, then you have the ability to change your mind, and you're able to shop around and get the best deal.
Plan it.
Yes, exactly.
Plan early. Okay. I know you are well known and have good reputation in Oakville, good builder. So what qualities should homeowners looking for in a custom home builder?
Good question. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors obviously to consider, but I think one of the most important factors is experience. And not just overall building experience, but also experience building in your community in terms of where you plan on building. Because if a builder has experience in that neighborhood, they know what the trends are, they know where you should spend your money, how you should spend it. They would give you good advice because they'll know the market there really well. And then they'll also have a really good sense of available trades and materials that are required in that area. So experience is obviously extremely important. And then just, you know, it's like anything, you know, communication style, right? You're going to be spending a lot of time with your builder. So it's got to be somebody you like, you're going to enjoy working with for over a year. And so how they communicate with you, you know, is there a trust factor? Do you trust them? How do they handle aftercare? Once you move in, what's their aftercare support? You know, are they going to service you well? Do you have confidence that they're going to be there and resolve issues for you? So these are all factors you should definitely consider.
Experience, local, have good relationship with all the trades, and communication skills.
Absolutely.
People you like.
That's right.
And how important is it for the homeowners to check reference and look at the past projects, like before hiring someone?
Sure. I mean, obviously, you know, building a home is a massive investment, right? So you should go through a thorough decision process in selecting a builder, and references are very important. Absolutely. I wouldn't build a house without, you know, even buying a car. I'm going to ask for people that have the same model and what their experience is with it, because it's an investment, right? So a house is even more of an investment. So references are really important. So I always recommend, you know, ask your builder about the last 3 builds that they've completed or in the process of completing, and then ask them to just connect you with those 3 clients, right? Because don't let the builder select who the references should be. Ask them for specific references. Say, if you're building these 3 homes right now, I want to talk to these 3 clients. What's the house you finished last year? I want to talk to that client, see how they're, if they've had any issues since they moved in. Because, you know, if you ask a builder for references, they're going to just give you who they think is going to give them the best referral. But you want an honest answer, and you know, the best answer is going to be from people that they've completed, you know, the past few projects. Maybe ask the builder what's the past projects you have. And random select 1 or 2. And it's good, you know, and I think people are obviously going to give you the right feedback on the builder. And you know, the other factor is if they're a new builder, then it's a little concerning. If they have, you know, a lot of experience in your area, then I'm sure they have a good reputation. There's a reason why they're continuing to have business in that area, right? So, because you know, reputation, at the end of the day, especially as a custom home builder, reputation is extremely important. And you know, if you do a poor job, your you know, word travels very quickly. So
it's all about reputation and referral.
Absolutely, exactly.
And it is important to go the site to see how the project looks like.
Absolutely, it is. So I always encourage you know, anybody that I'm talking to, prospective clients, I'll walk them through my projects that I'm working on. This way they can ask questions, they can see the caliber finishes, they can see how my trades work, they can see my relationship with the trades, how I communicate with them, and then it just gives them an opportunity to kind of see the different stages of the building process as well, right? Because I'll show them a house that in the early stages and then some that were in the finishing stages. So it's always a good idea to compare the two as well.
Yeah, and you just mentioned communication is really important. As you said, sometimes maybe you play the role as a managed consultant.
Right, right.
So how the communication skills play a role in this process?
Yeah, well, obviously it's really important to understand what your client's vision is, right? So you need to be a good listener, right? So you need to digest what their vision is, what they want to accomplish, how they see a certain space.
Yeah.
And then it's your job as a builder to make that a reality, communicate that to your trades and make that a reality, right? And then in doing so, it's just important to, one thing I find really useful is having regular on-site meetings with my clients.
Okay.
Because then it gives them opportunity to ask questions. It gives them an opportunity to understand the process and get educated, and they become a lot more comfortable with the end outcome because they'll see how it started and where it finished.
Such a regular meeting.
So regular meetings, absolutely. And then, because there's always questions that come up, and a lot of times clients will be driving home and then they'll forget to ask you something.
Yeah.
And when you're sitting there and going on site, they'll remember the questions because they'll see it. They'll be like, oh yeah, I need to ask you about this. Why is this wall over here? Why is this like this? Why is piping going through here? And then you can explain.
Yeah.
Right? There's always good reasons for it, but and that's part of a builder's job is educating their clients.
It's a funny thing. So as a realtor, so the number one complaint about a realtor, it's like no communication. It's like communication is really important.
Absolutely, yeah, because ultimately you want to be comfortable with everything that happens, right? So if my client isn't happy with something or is anxious or isn't happy with something, then that's going to impact my relationship with them.
Right.
And it's going to impact what they see and how they perceive other things in the future. So it's really important for me to make sure that at every stage that they understand what's going on and be comfortable with that, because then it's going to allow them to make the next set of decisions and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Okay, Miguel, you helped your clients did lots of custom built homes. What you can see, what common mistakes so homeowners usually make when they build their home, and how they can avoid the mistakes. Do you have any suggestion?
Yes. I would say the biggest mistake and the most common one is clients looking at things purely from a cost perspective. Ultimately, of course, you want to spend the least amount on building your house.
Yeah.
But not at the cost of making it unattractive and hurting your resale value. So I find that a lot of times clients are making decisions, they'll look at flooring as an example, and they'll say, hey, let's do laminate instead of hardwood, engineered hardwood. And it's like, no.
They want to save money.
They want to save money.
Okay.
And when you save money, you're saving money in the short term, but you're hurting yourself in the long term, because back to what we talked about earlier, when you list your house and you want 3.6 million like the guy up the street got, you're going to make decisions that are going to hurt you to achieve that, right? So that's probably one of the biggest pitfalls for sure. And again, part of it is you need to rely on, if you have a good designer and a good builder, they'll give you the right advice and help you save monies in areas that aren't going to help, that aren't going to hurt the resale value of your house. Okay. And then the other mistake clients make a lot of times is kind of related, but sometimes too much involvement. They see a sign and they're from another plumber, and they get a quote, and that plumber is $5,000 cheaper, and they're like, I want to use that plumber, and there's usually a reason why labor and materials are cheaper. It's because the quality is not there. So sometimes clients get too involved in the building process, and again, that's part of a builder's relationship as well, to manage that and explain to them why you shouldn't use certain trades or certain materials.
Okay. So number one, to over control your cost.
Yes.
And I saw the opposite one, too much spent.
That's right. Yeah. So it's somewhere in between, and you have to stick to a budget for sure. And again, we talked about this earlier. Sometimes clients start forgetting about costs and spend a little. They don't mind spending a little bit more on countertops or do this, or it's only a few thousand here, a few thousand there, and it starts adding up, right? but just be disciplined, right? And if you spend too much but you're really happy with your house, well, that's a good thing too.
Yeah,
you spend a little more, but you're thrilled, and that happens, right? Ultimately, that is what I want to see: is a client move in and they're happy with the house.
Yeah.
And if they spent a little more than they wanted to, but they're extremely happy, well, it's not the worst thing in the world, right? Versus on the other extreme, which I've seen as well, is where clients move in and they're not happy. They saved money, but now they're not happy because they cut too many corners.
Okay.
Right?
Overcut. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for the custom built home, what trades are you seeing right now in custom home design and construction?
Yeah, so like we talked about earlier, transitional overall style, which is transitional is sort of an in-between modern and traditional, right? And again, there's a lot of flexibility in that. So there's a lot of varying, there's modern country style homes, etc. But definitely the trend is more minimalist. And that basically means, like less crown molding or no crown molding, cleaner lines, less details, so simpler house.
Simple house.
Simple house that still looks good.
Okay.
Versus, 10 years ago, a lot of houses would have a lot of details, a lot of wall paneling,
right.
a lot of wainscoting, a lot of crown molding, heavy cabinetry everywhere, built-ins around the TV and fireplace. Now there's a movement away from that, just to keep things a little simpler, and that also helps a little bit on the cost.
Open.
Yeah, it's open concept's always good, right? When somebody walks into a house, things feel wide open. It just feels bigger, right?
True.
And then when there's a lot of detail, sometimes it looks too busy. So there's definitely a trend towards more of the minimalist approach.
Okay, if I'm a homeowner, I just kind of start. So I just want to buy land and start to custom build a home. Do you have any suggestion for this one? Or newer?
Yeah, well, just work with your realtor. Go see a lot of houses. Like, have a good understanding of what you like, what you don't like. Just do your research. Spend your time on the weekends. Go look at open houses. And start interviewing builders early on. Talk to a number of builders. Every builder has a different experience, and you'll learn a lot from them. And same thing with architects. Really good idea to start engaging architects really early in the process. Because an architect is very similar to a builder in the sense that you're going to be working closely with them, and they have their own style, they have their own personality, and you want to make sure you can work well with them and that they share the same style and vision that you have. Right? And it's a lot of upfront research, I think.
Okay, just do more research.
Yeah, a lot of good conversations. Just go out and talk to your realtor, talk to different builders, and talk to different architects. Just the more people you talk to, you're always learning one or two things from everybody, right? And then you'll have a better sense of what you want. So then when you're ready to buy a property and start the building process, you'll be that much further ahead.
More sense about the budget, more sense about the time.
Exactly. So I've talked to many people over the years at different stages, and the worst thing is when somebody has a property, they've already invested, they buy a property, and then you tell them what the building costs are, and they're like, "What?" They have no appreciation because they're thinking of building costs from 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Yes.
And that's the number they have in their head, and they don't realize it's changed. So, and then now they're in a situation, maybe they don't have the right financing in place, or they're going to have to delay the build, right? So, that's not a good position to be in, right? So, if you do a lot of that upfront work, even before you buy a property, it's just more informed.
Okay. More plan about that.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having
Miguel.
me.
Thank you all. And thank you, Miguel, for sharing. Really insight, useful information for custom built home. Really appreciate about that.
Thank you for having me. I really had a great time. I hope I shared some good insight with you, and pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Looking for more your custom built home.
Thank you.